inside there's little spinning wobble bolts attached to triangles with electricity underneath them. And then here are emitters that emit at different frequencies, little blocks that the player can jump on. The player reaches this auto-stabilizing skyboard, which is extremely rudimentary in that it doesn't really stabilize, and in fact it's kind of a joke. So the player gets up here, tries their best to get to the top, and it is possible to get to the top, and they eventually do get to the top. These are emitted at a certain every so often, just in case the player gets into a situation like that where the skyboard can't be used again. Okay, so the player approaches this stabilizing board, and eventually we'll reach the top where they grab this, and one more time. Player gets to the top, grabs this. That AND gate is completed, plays the sound, and that also dissolves the gate, which was right here, and that gate was keeping the player from continuing. The minecart was here, and the player can continue going. There's a little magnetic key on the front of the minecarts, which will activate once the player gets right there. Now what happens there is also kind of important. Another foolproof mechanism is this right here. This block falls down when the minecart gets close enough to here. That way the player doesn't actually bring the minecart back out or run out or something. So you'll observe that right here. See, the gate falls, this elevator lifts all the way up, and then the player continues on up here. The player continues into this giant maze, and it's a spinning maze. This spinning maze is actually pretty complicated. Simple to begin with, though. You just create a giant circle, you create a giant square, and then inside that, quick little demonstration, you cut out a circle, and you rotate a few times to create a more perfect circle, and then slightly smaller than that, you make another circle, and you have that second circle. And then on a layer behind it, you make something for the circle to connect to, and then you attach a motor, and essentially you get this. You'll see this motor is attached to a dissolved square, and that'll be explained later. So what happens when the player pulls this switch is it enables this motor with a permanent switch down here. It also closes these two gates, which are another foolproof mechanism to ensure that the player doesn't jump out or something, or jump into the wrong spot. That's pretty much what happens when the player grabs that. Now there's some points in here dangling about just in case the player goes in one direction. or if they go in the other direction, they'll eventually get to this exit here. The way this exit works is a few things. So anyway, when this green switch is in proximity to this green switch, and the player is in this area, this dissolved square will be dissolved and the entire structure will stop. Now the way this works is another logic AND gate. You just saw it turn on and off right there, because this switch was close to the other switch. This key was close to the other switch. So when the player is here, you'll see when it gets to the right spot, it just stops altogether. Perfect. Now you see this dissolved, this motor part dissolved, and that's what caused the entire structure to fall and stop. So that was done by an AND gate using a sensor switch and a magnetic key switch. Now, some players were getting confused at this part here because there's a sheet of glass and they didn't know how to get past it. So you'll see if they stand here long enough, the voice in their head will tell them to walk behind the glass. The way that happens is a sensor switch here, which drives this piston, this little kind of gate thing I created here, and if that piston goes all the way here, it'll trigger this magical mouth. So you'll see they stand here, and after a certain amount of time that appears. So they'll continue through here. There's a conveyor belt that is pretty easy to make. It actually is included in the objects you can unlock. And here is a piston in the flipper setting attached to a sensor switch, which will cause the player to be launched out. And that's pretty much the level. Over here is a sensor switch which drives this dissolved material, and this poster falls down. And that is, for the most part, how this level works. I hope this was an informative video, and I hope you learned some stuff, and I hope you enjoyed it. So check out my level, LBC1-The Forsaken Temple. If you have any questions, just add me on the PSN, or just send me a message on the Little Big Workshop. Thanks a lot.